Hello, welcome to The Wrestling Show. I'm Doc Allen. Today I'm going to be covering the December 25th, 2021 edition of AEW Rampage Holiday Bash. This was taped on Wednesday from the Greensboro Coliseum in Greensboro, North Carolina. Commentators were Taz, Excalibur, and Ricky Starks. So our opening match was Jungle Boy with Luchasaurus and Christian Cage against Isaiah Cassidy with the Hardy Family Office. Worth noting that Marco Stunt is still MIA, and also based on the fact that he's been picking up what seems like a lot more indie bookings, makes me think that they're kind of cutting him loose. They haven't released him from his contract as far as I know, but it probably looks like he's not going to be renewed, so they're letting him get ahead of that. So depending on your opinions, you may think that's a nice thing or a jerk move, but I kind of think that if they're not going to re-sign him, they might as well let him start building up his brand on the indies again. So, fans were pretty into this match. They, of course, did their sing-along and dance-along to Tarzan Boy. I did not really think this was a particularly strong match. I mean, Jungle Boy looks good, as he typically does, and I'm fond of Private Party, and I've been high on many of their matches over the past 2 years. I don't know what was going on with Cassidy here. He seemed to be wrestling like a wet noodle, and he hit most of his spots, but he was kind of doing so in a way that seemed like he was on the verge of disaster. Like it was a miracle that his spots were connecting, rather than looking like somebody who was confident and like just in the prime of his physical being. If you were to turn this match off and then put on like a Ricochet match from 2 years ago, the difference would be really startling. Makes me wonder if Cassidy wouldn't benefit more from taking indie bookings, because I wonder if he's getting enough reps just working the limited tapings that AEW provides through Dark and the TV schedule. But the other thing about this match I didn't really care for was if you said, Doc, just write your own play-by-play about what you think would happen in a typical match between these two, with these guys circling around ringside. I would probably type up exactly what happened. The Hardy Family Office interfered, Christian and Luchasaurus tangled with them, and then it gave Cassidy a chance to maybe steal the win, but since JB had been working over his knee well enough throughout the match, he was able to win with the snare trap. So I found this match to be not very well executed and just overwhelmingly predictable, so I only gave this a 1.5 stars. Next, we got the Miro video promo, where he's walking around seemingly cast in limbo after being cast from heaven. He does a voiceover saying some mean, cryptic things, such as, redemption doesn't come with a smile, it comes with a price. And he's coming back to be champion, and this kind of makes me think they're setting him up as a challenger for Hangman, rather than for the TNT title, which we'll get to later. Up next, we had Hook versus Bearnson. Now, just like in his first match, Hook comes out with that swagger like he's in charge. He knows that something's about to happen, and he knows something that the rest of us don't. And this match only went 3 minutes and 4 seconds, and I don't think I would call this a squash. I would compare this more to when, say, you have Goldberg and Lesnar in the ring, just holding nothing back for a short time period, where, obviously neither one of them is squashing the other one. It's just throwing hammers until somebody goes down fast. Like, it's an urgent brawl without a second to spare. And so last week, or 2 weeks ago, when Hook made his debut, a lot of the criticisms I saw were, alright, well, Hook looked good, but how is he going to do against a bigger opponent? Well, Bear Bronson is a bigger opponent, and Hook still looked very good. His striking still looked legitimate, and he still hit some really brutal power moves, like a Northern Light suplex, and like a really disgusting backdrop driver. I hope Bronson's okay after taking that bump. So Hook finished again with the Taz mission, which for now is going to be known as Red Rum. So luckily we don't have the TNA commentators to burst in every time he applies us to yell, "That's murder spelled backwards!" So, I will say too that when Bronson was getting his shots in, the crowd was booing him. So, I'd say Hook is a total babyface. The fans love him. There's no point in fighting it. They should already be working towards what to do when Hook breaks away from Team Taz. Which further complicates things, since obviously his father runs the group. So, short match. I gave this 2 stars and a quarter, because it was only 3 minutes, but it was a great use of 3 minutes. Afterwards, Tony Nese was spotted in the crowd, giving Hook the look. So, looks like that Hook has a program being set up with Nese. And I was wondering if Nese was sticking around after the deal with Sammy, or if that had been like kind of a tryout feud to see how things went. So I'm guessing that went well. Up next, Eddie Kingston talked to the camera. He's not mad at Daniel Garcia. Actually, he sort of respects him for stealing the pinfall. And this is setting up Eddie to team with Santana and Ortiz against Garcia in 2.0 on the next edition of Dynamite. Not sure I'm overly interested in this feud, and they might as well just do this on a Dynamite that a lot of people won't be watching due to holiday reasons. But, and I also kind of wonder if the Inner Circle was quietly dissolved, or if this is sort of like a deal where, because Jericho's on tour, they're just going to have the guys do their own thing. And when there is like a big threat to one of them, the group will reunite. That might be what they are going forward, if they're baby faces, rather than the, top heel act running the show. So up next we had Chris Statlander against Layla Hirsch. And again, I like both of these women a lot. And I wouldn't say that this match had no story, because they started with a friendly handshake. And Statlander was kind enough to not go for the, the boop right off the bat. But she did go for the boop after a clean break. And then later when the match was over, and Chris looked for another handshake, Layla slapped it away. So they did offer some character development for Hirsch, who largely is a dark regular. So, this was a back and forth match, and again, it went a bit longer than the Hook match, but it was kind of set up the same way, where it was just all action. I thought this one suffered a little bit, though, because it felt like the arbitrary, I do a move, and you kick out at 2, then you do a move, and I kick out at 2, and there wasn't really anything to sink your teeth in besides that. Also, this was a little bit on the sloppy side. At one point, Hirsch went for a moonsault off the second rope, and she got kind of a clunky, glancing, almost botched landing on Statlander. So there was some times where I felt like they were kind of barely holding things together. So Chris ended up winning with the Spider Crab at 6 minutes and 26 seconds. And again, a little spotty, sloppy, and a tad overbooked with like the near falls for my liking. So I gave this a star and 3/4. Up next, Mark Henry hosted the split screen interview between the TNT champions Sammy Guevara and Cody Rhodes with Arn Anderson. And Henry wanted to know how Cody plans to win when he's somebody who has 1 foot out the door. Arn then jumped in and says that you should never pick a fight with someone who's pissed off, and Cody had better be pissed off because Arn has been chewing him out over the past 2 months. Guevara got offended by this and said that he's going to be carrying AEW and Cody for years to come. So short and simple, and it got right. And again, they were acting like they didn't have a minute to spare. This was very quick. They all hit their lines and moved right on. So that brought us to our main event with Sammy Guevara defending the TNT title against Cody Rhodes with Arn. Greensboro is not exactly a smart market, but they also hate Cody to the point where I forgot that they weren't in New York. And it's worth noting that before the match, Justin Roberts took a minute to give a shout out to David Crockett, who was in attendance. And if you'd asked me before the show, whatever happened to David Crockett, I'd probably say, oh, he must have passed away some years ago. But nope, there he is. Probably feeling shell-shocked about what he's seeing. So, a little background here. This was the first time that these guys have met in a singles match since the premiere episode of Dynamite way back in October of 2019. Now, I overrated that match at the time. I gave it 3 stars and 3/4. And, they had good chemistry that night. And when I stop and think about it, since then, Cody has I'd say Cody's the same performer he's been since then. Sammy has improved a lot, and this match had higher stakes, so I would have expected this match to be better, that one, and it was, but I'll get into that later. So, Sammy had a hot start with a shotgun dropkick, and Cody blocked the GTH, and again, they kept a really good pace, and I didn't really pay attention to the match during the commercial with the picture-in-picture because it'll start off by showing you what's happening and then it'll cut to a full screen commercial. So I've kind of learned that I don't really have to pay attention to what's happening in the picture-in-picture parts of the match. So if there was a slow spot, that's when it happened. When they came back from the commercials, Cody hit a delayed power slam. It was set up like it was going to be a vertical suplex, but then he dropped Sammy frontward. Guevara dodged a moonsault, but he was selling an arm injury. Sammy used his good arm for a comeback, hitting a series of quick attacks, including a double springboard cutter for 2. Guevara then stole Crossroads, but Cody rolled out of the ring to avoid getting pinned. And I prefer that so much more than doing the 1, 2, no, because it protects the finisher better. Guevara then hit a double springboard 450 splash to outside. Sammy looked for a Rana off of the steps, but Cody powerbombed him into the crowd. And I sure hope the fans out there were plants, because one guy looked like he got knocked loopy. Then they returned to the ring. Cody hit the disaster kick and Crossroads, but Sammy kicked out. So, that's not what I want to see. Crossroads hasn't been the most protected finisher over the year or so, but still, I'm all for protecting finishers, even in title matches on your holiday Saturday show. So, Guevara blocked a reverse suplex and did hit the GTH, but Cody kicked out, and then Sammy did the shocked 2 count face that is common in WWE, where he's just like, oh. That was a little silly. So, but the crowd did start chanting, "This is awesome." Sammy perched for a 630, but Cody blocked with his knees. Then Cody hit a pair of Crossroads and then a Tiger Driver 98, once again teasing that he was going to hit a pedigree before going for the Tiger Driver. And he won the title at 15-14. Fans hate that result, and they let him know it. So, I definitely did overrate their first match in 2019 because this match had better action, a better story, higher stakes, and far more drama. But I still think it was in the same, I wouldn't go as far as say it's 4 stars. This was somewhere between 3.5 stars and 3 stars and 3/4. So, and I kind of lean towards 3.5 stars because I did kind of have some chuckles during it. That means it's still very good. And it means that I'd probably retroactively give their first match something like 3 stars. So, Cody celebrates in the ring with the Nightmare Family and Jim Crockett, and is still acting like a perfectly nice and respectable babyface. So if you were looking for a heel turn from Cody, it did not happen here. He still seems to be playing the role of an unpopular tweener who does have some support. There was a sign where a fan had written, "We still love Cody." But that seems to be right now the cool thing to do when you go to AEW is to boo him. So it is what it is. So the final thoughts of the show: the main event was an important chapter in whatever it is that Cody's doing. And it kind of seems obvious in hindsight that Cody was going to win this because Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page are being set up as preemptive challengers, where they've made it clear they want the TNT title shots, and they're also aligned against Cody. I have to wonder if Sammy Guevara's Inner Circle friends will have anything to say about this situation, but it does kind of seem like that group is splintered off. Hook also looks like a potential breakout star, especially if the fans keep giving him these big babyface reactions. I do hesitate a little bit because it's too early to say if Hook's reaction is like the fandangoing thing from 2013, where the fans, especially that WrestleMania crowd, saw something cheesy and decided to play along by kind of mocking it, ironically. And then the company mistook that for, "Wow, this guy's really over. Let's push him." Or if this could be something more like the Yes Effect, or the Yes Movement with Daniel Bryan in 2014 and 2015, where there was a genuine groundswell of fan support that the company mistook for something ironic like the fandangoing. Right. With the Greensboro crowd being so strongly behind Hook and really into what was a very good short match, I'm kind of leaning towards the latter. I think Hook is getting over. And you know, when you spend a year or so having a guy just standing around looking cool, and then you finally put him in the ring with these short matches where he shines, I mean, that's a pretty winning formula to get somebody over. So I'd say keep an eye on Hook, and his matches right now feel like must-see TV. So overall, I'd say check out the Hook match and the main event. Skip the other matches. They would have been better served as Dark Elevation main events. But I'm glad I took the time to watch this show. The show did feel important, and you would have forgiven AEW for phoning it in on a Christmas Day show. So kudos to them for delivering something important. I also think that having a title change on Rampage is a good way to maybe fix some of the show's ratings issues. And I'm not saying that I want to see a title change constantly or on a regular basis on Rampage, but just doing one on Rampage every so often kind of will leave that thought in the viewer's mind of, like, if there's a title match on Rampage, it could change, so I shouldn't skip it. So that was Rampage for Christmas. Well, hope you all had a great Christmas, and look forward to covering the next Dynamite and keep this channel going into 2022. So take care.